My name's Bob Fischer. I'm a freelance writer and a science fiction and fantasy fan, and it's been over 3 years now since I went to my first convention, which was a Doctor Who convention, which was here in this very room at the Swallow Hotel in Stockton. And that kind of inspired me to look further into the nature of conventions, about other programmes and about different films, and to kind of gain a flavour of some of the people that go to conventions, both the celebs that have appeared in the programmes and the fans as well, and the kind of things they get up to on these weekends. The first one I went to was just, it was such an incredibly surreal experience that I found it quite fascinating and quite addictive, really. I was sitting, well, in this room, in this bar, and looking out of the window here, and we're kind of looking over Stockton High Street, and it was a Friday evening, and there were just kind of outbreaks of random violence happening around the High Street, and kind of sitting in the bar here, to the left of me was a man called David Benson, who played Noel Coward in Goodnight Sweetheart, and to the right of me was a Cyberman, and I was just intrigued at the kind of the juxtaposition of all of that between the normal life outside and the kind of strangeness in here, and to kind of what drives people to actually attend these things. So it was a fascination, really, and plus the fact, I mean, I'm not coming at this from an outsider's point of view. I am a fan of all of the programs that I covered, and I didn't want to go and attend a convention for a subject that I wasn't interested in. It always had to be something I was enthusiastic about. So, I mean, there's a self-indulgent aspect of it as well. Yeah, I've been to 10 events in the last year, which are Doctor Who here. I went to a Star Wars Day in Cardiff. I went to Blake 7 weekend, which was here again in Stockton. I went to a James Bond celebration, which was in Swindon. I went to a Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy versus Blake 7 water pistol fight, which took place at Winspit Quarry, which is near Swanage in Dorset. The day after that, I drove to Portmeirion on the Welsh coast and went to a prisoner convention, and then following on from that, I've been to Robin of Sherwood weekend it was near Retford in Nottinghamshire. I've been to a Red Dwarf weekend in Peterborough, and a Terry Pratchett Discworld marathon 5-day event, which was in Hinckley in Leicestershire. I've missed one out, actually. I actually went to a Monty Python day, which was in Doon Castle, just north of Glasgow. So I had the strange experience of sitting in the location, the actual courtyard where Holy Grail was filmed, while watching the Holy Grail being projected onto a big screen there. So you could see scenes happening on the screen, and you could look around and see where they were filmed. I was basically 150 Monty Python fans sitting in a very, very cold castle courtyard, getting extremely drunk. You know, if people have never been to a sci-fi convention, think that everybody that's in there is kind of, a very insular, slightly socially awkward person who likes dressing up in science fiction clothes and costumes from their favourite TV shows. There is an element of truth in that, and you will find those people in there. But I think it's unfair to kind of cast that aspersion across the whole convention, because there are plenty of other people that don't fall into those categories at conventions as well. But I think that's the one, because it's such a kind of an abiding image and an easy image to place onto these things. That's the one that's stuck in the mind of the general public, and I think that's probably an image that's stuck to fandom as a whole, even to people that don't go to conventions. That before Doctor Who came back on TV, I mean, Doctor Who's gained an enormous amount of respectability in the last couple of years, because the new series has just been so good, and it's been liked by so many millions of people. But before that actually appeared, if you mentioned to somebody that you're a Doctor Who fan in 1999 or whatever, they would immediately say, oh, so you dress up and go to, because that was what the public persona of fandom actually was. I think that has changed a little bit in the last few years, actually. I think the tide's turning a little bit, but it's still there, certainly. There are the same traits that you would see in a Doctor Who fan or a Blake 7 fan, or a Red Dwarf fan or whatever, you will find in a certain number of football fans. There's that obsessiveness about their subject. There is the element of dressing up, which good on you, Neil. It had never even struck me before, but he's absolutely spot on. And there's, I could introduce you to dozens of football fans that can tell you the names of, the team that turned out against Oxford United on the 14th of March 1988 and the attendance for that game, and do that for hundreds of games for their team. And I mean, to me, no, there's no difference between that and knowing, who played the third Cyberman on the left in Earthshock in 1982. It's all part of the same kind of degree of fandom. Maybe because something like football is a more public thing, if you see what I mean. It's certainly more widespread than sci-fi fandom is, and it's probably got a little bit more of a social element to it. People meet. Sci-fi fandom can be a very insular experience. It's perfectly possible to be an obsessive sci-fi fan and never meet anybody else. You stay in your house, you watch the TV series, read the books, watch the films. I think with football, if you're obsessive about it, it's impossible to do that. You've got to get out and go to the matches. You're going to meet people, you're going to see people in pubs, you're going to sit next to people at the games. So I think maybe because football's got that kind of almost like extrovert feel to it that sci-fi doesn't necessarily have to have. That's why the schisms occurred. There are definitely different groups of fans. Doctor Who is very male orientated. Very few female Doctor Who fans, certainly of old school Doctor Who anyway. I think the new series has probably brought more female fans into the fold, although, to be honest, I've yet to see much evidence of that at conventions. Contrastingly, Blake 7 has a large female following. I would say a majority of people at the Blake 7 convention were female fans. Robin of Sherwood, an overwhelming majority of female fans, which really surprised me. Discworld, I would say, was about 50-50, and Red Dwarf, surprising number of female fans as well. Star Wars surprised me in being quite family orientated, although that was a different kind of event. That was basically a signing session and a merchandise day at a hotel in Cardiff, and it was the week before Christmas. So I mean, looking at kind of mums and dads bringing their kids along to, I guess, meet the stars a little bit, get a few signed pictures and buy some Christmas presents, I think. But in terms of behaviour, I mean, some of the conventions tend to take on similar formats, really. So whether there's that much scope for people to behave in incredibly different ways at different things, I'm not entirely sure. But yeah, I would say, if anything, I mean, the most social one that I went to was the Robin of Sherwood convention, where basically everybody was your friend, and it was just, you felt like you were part of a community that, I mean, I'd never been to a Robin of Sherwood event before, but I left it's the one convention where I've been to kind of going away and taking email addresses with me from people that I'd met there, because I'd got on so well with them over the course of the weekend, and because I'd been made to feel so welcome. So that was kind of more inclusive, I thought, than some of them, but it's possible that was to do with its size, really. I mean, there were only, I would say, about 100 people there, and you compare that to something like the Discworld convention, or even the Doctor Who, where you're looking at 400 or 500 people there over the course of the weekend, and it's kind of more difficult there, I guess. But yeah, there are, I would say, I'm not sure the behaviour differs an incredible amount, because I don't want to kind of stereotype and say, well, these kind of people go to this sort of programme, because, at all of these events you find very different groups of people. One Robin of Sherwood fan will be very different to another one, so I'm kind of keen not to lump everybody in together. But I would say kind of different programmes definitely attract certain different strata of society, like kind of male-female boundaries, or that kind of thing.